Thanks for tuning in to the Animal Control Report podcast, where we help debunk the dog catcher stereotype. A lot of times people think it's the dog catcher when they hear about animal control officers, but here on the Animal Control Report, we change that by taking you inside the day-to-day operations of animal control officers. Not only will you hear stories of animal control officers, but you'll hear from industry experts as well. We are also part of the Keep It Humane podcast network. We have some amazing partners there, so check them out at keepithumane.com/podcast network. You can listen to all the animal control and animal welfare related podcasts there, and let's continue to help people help animals. Welcome to another episode of Born with the wrong podcast. This is the Animal Control Report with your hosts
Ashlee Bishop
and Ashlee Bishop.
Some mornings I just say things to see if you're paying attention. The reality is I'm not paying attention.
We know.
Well, that's good. So check out our website, keepithumane.com. Also, please go and nominate. We have our nominations.
Nominate.
We have our nominations open for ACO, Animal Control, Animal Care, Animal Protection Officer of the Year award. That award is accompanied by also an opportunity to vote for your agency of the year. So whatever animal control agency you feel is deserving. We know you're all deserving, but we wanted to give people an opportunity to nominate and wait.
Nominate.
And win. There's going to be some cool stuff. You'll obviously get the second annual trophy so you'll be the second ACO of the year and second agency. This is year 2 now, so we're excited to get that out there. And there's really not much you need to do other than write why this person or why this agency is great. We don't have any other requirements in regards to that. So check that out at keepithumane.com/awards. You can also check out our socials. I also had something I needed to mention and I wanted to ask you about, but as I think about it, because I forgot because my brain's not working, how are y'all?
Tired.
Okay.
Very tired.
How are you? First off, we're going to get a little personal here, Ashlee, Wisconsin Bishop. For those that don't follow her on Instagram, or actually Facebook, I should say. Facebook. She made a very heart-filled post yesterday because it was her last day, technically, with her agency that she was with for 11 years. So just checking in. I know I maybe made a comment, but I haven't. Well, and responded to some texts. Texts, but I haven't checked in. Like, how are you? I know it's like really fresh, kind of. You've been preparing for this for a long time, but how are you?
I'm here. It was definitely a slap in the face. And we keep talking about it. Like, we'll probably dive full in the new year, maybe, and like give everybody kind of the real rundown of what happened. The short version is my agency, my city decided that my services were no longer valuable, and for budgetary reasons, they cut me as a full-time humane officer, and they're putting it back on the police department in whole. So, yeah, I mean, it was a slap in the face. I worked very, very hard to get where I was at. I went to school for my vet tech degree specifically for this position. And this was just what I've always wanted to do. So I'm kind of at the point where I'm like, they slightly traumatized and not sure where I'm going to go from here at this point.
Wherever you go, it'll be the right place. I have faith.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's been what I found out in March that this was in the process, and then I fought long and hard. But again, that's like a full episode in and of itself.
That might be a 2-part series.
That might be a 2-part.
It's going to be a series.
Now the real question is, will the chief come on?
Oh, probably not. But you know what? We could probably be putting in some clips from the city council meetings that are public.
We absolutely could. So stay tuned for that. 2025 is going to be a a big year. So thanks for
Yeah.
sharing some of that.
Mhm.
Texas,
Thanks for
Texas,
checking in.
Texas Bishop thinks that it's Monday right now, but it's how you doing down there?
You know, it's just been a weekend, y'all. It is what it is. But no, we're coming off a good week. We had a good week. Our staff is awesome. I just have to say that. They're doing great things, and all the things are breaking in my facility, so that's fun. It's
They say that things go in threes.
Yeah, so between the air conditioner units, the heaters in our dog hall, it's been on that end of things. My building's falling apart, guys. It really
But you're
is.
getting a new one soon, right?
I hope by this time next year I'm in the midst of getting a new facility. But last week was good. We had a good week last week. Busy, busy, busy. Shouts out to the ACO that was on call. 9 bite cases
Whoa.
through the week. It was absolutely nuts. So shouts out to her because it was a lot this week. We have more dogs in quarantine that we've had in a hot minute. But no, we're good. Yesterday I thought I missed the podcast and I had a mini panic attack, and lo and behold, I went to go check my phone. It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon and it was Saturday.
Could you
So
imagine though, like for real, that you weren't like, let's just say we were recording today and you weren't here yet. Like, could you imagine us starting the podcast without you actually like without us
Let me
reaching
tell
out, calling you, texting
I
you?
I can tell you this, Ashley, Dan can get obnoxious. So you would get notified.
Oh, that's what you mean. Yeah, no doubt.
Yes.
No doubt. No
yeah,
doubt.
so other than that, we're good. All the Bishop puppies are doing well. Rue's doing good, and yeah, we're just trucking along. Husband's been working like crazy. It was nuts over here last night. Texas A&M LSU game.
Oh,
It was
snap.
very busy last night for him. Lots of calls. For those of you that don't know, my husband's a 911 dispatcher for our county. And it was nuts. So shouts out to all of our first responders, dispatchers that work Brazos County last night, because apparently it was crazy.
Well, in the spirit of craziness and Halloween, you're going to want to stay tuned because we're going to be picking what we think dog's favorite Halloween or just treat is going to be. It's going to be fun, so stay tuned for that. Um, as we jump into it, let's bring in our guest, Mark Sloat, who is the director of Victoria County, Texas. Mark, what's your favorite Halloween candy, man?
I'm one of those weirdos that likes the harvest corn stuff, the little
Candy
pure
corn.
sugar candy
That-
corn. Yeah,
That's not a bad thing. That's not a
Yeah.
bad thing.
my
I like
family
candy
thinks I'm
corn.
odd. Yeah. The nice thing is
Tell me
only
that
out.
they're wrong with a straight face.
It
Exactly.
only comes out once a year, so it's like if it is a bad habit, it's I'm restrained in how long I can enjoy it because of the seasonal aspect of it.
I don't know. Those candies last through nuclear war, honestly. I feel like.
Well, if you're a prepper, it's a
Also
good thing.
fair. Twinkies do not. Contrary to popular pop culture, Twinkies do not.
I'm just
Uh,
just curious. What are your two favorite candies, Bishop and Bishop?
It's a hard
Yeah.
question because I'm not a sweets person.
Well, you're gonna have
You're
to
sweet
answer because it's
enough.
Halloween. Oh, you stole my thunder.
Well,
I'll go really quick. Bottle
Yeah.
caps.
what?
Wow.
Bottle caps.
She
I'm
might
not
be
old
too
enough.
young. Yeah, she
I
might
see.
be too young to know
She
what a
clearly-
bottle cap is.
Specifically the root beer flavor.
there you go.
Ooh.
Yeah, Mark knows what's going on here.
I know what's going on.
Oh
Razzles, bottle caps, and
wow,
Pop Rocks.
Razzles. Mm.
Yeah.
You know, my favorite candy bar of all time was always a Butterfinger until they changed the recipe.
Wait, they
Mhm.
changed the recipe.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
years ago they changed the recipe. And there was like a huge uproar on Facebook about it. But the one thing that I have noticed is maybe it's totally psychological, but I feel like the fun size Butterfingers taste more like the old recipe than the full size.
No, I feel that because I feel like the Reese's cups, like the mini ones, those taste better than the regular cups.
Yeah.
So wait, Texas Bishop, are you going with Reese's cups?
No, I'm a big like if I do like something sweet, it's chocolate and caramel. So
Mm.
anything that's got chocolate caramel, Toblerone is kind of up there for me.
Toblerone. What about
You-
Rolos?
I can. It's just I just feel like
But
the
it's not a
caramel in there.
quality.
Yeah, it's not. I
No,
do
I'm a
prefer
chocolate
Toblerone.
snob. I'm a chocolate snob. I will only eat certain brands of chocolate.
Mm.
Um, but then you need to try the Reese. They don't make them hardly ever anymore, but they have a Reese's peanut butter cup for like Easter time that has
Yes.
caramel in it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Are we just
They're
gonna talk about
amazing.
candy the rest of the show? I mean, what's going on here? Mark Sloat, tell us about Mark Sloat. Like Mark, we know you joke about being old, but you're not old. But talk about like, can you talk about your just path, how you got into this profession, and where you are now with Victoria County?
Well, I am old. It started a long time ago. I got married in 1985, and my wife and I are super passionate animal people. And we moved to a rural area outside Minneapolis, St. Paul, and she picked up a dog on the way home from work one day, and we called the county sheriff and said, "Hey, we got this dog. Where do we take it?" And the response from the dispatch was, "You can either keep it or you can shoot it." Which,
Oh,
Sounds
wow.
about
you
right.
know,
I mean, for
for
that
the
time.
right. So we ended up keeping her. Her name was Sammy Joe, and about a week later, maybe 2 weeks later, the stars aligned, and our local paper came out, and then they had an article about some ladies that were starting an animal society called the Robert B. Lewis Animal Foundation, and they needed volunteers and board members, whatever. So instead of slowly walking in and seeing what we could do, we walked in and said, "Hey, we'll house all the dogs for you," and we built giant pens, and we housed dogs for the next 24 years. It did change from the Robert B. Lewis kind of fell apart. People got old. A couple of people just moved away. So my wife and I just kept it going, and we had what we called homeless hounds dog rescue in Minnesota. Um, this is before internet. We used to have to put ads in the paper. We had no animal control in the county. There was no county in Minnesota at that time that had animal control. It was just in the cities. And then in 2000, actually, I'm sorry, 1997, 98, a lot of movement was coming out of the Twin City metro area, and people were bringing their dogs and thinking, hey, we're on 5 acres, we can just let them run. Well, the farmers were getting upset because those dogs don't know the landlines. And so our county approached us, since we'd run the dog rescue, they approached us to help write animal code and ordinances. And we ended up doing a contract animal control for the next 11 years. So I was similar to Ashlee in Wisconsin. I was a county humane agent in Minnesota for, I don't know, since like 1986. And so we were the first county in Minnesota to actually have animal control, but it was odd because it was a contract. It wasn't through it was under the zoning department. And so we moved here in 2009, and then I started working for City of Austin Animal Services as an animal control officer in 2012. Interesting thing about that, my wife and I ran our shelter as a no-kill. Basically, just we weren't trying to kill for space or convenience. We were always trying to find a good outlet for the dogs. Animal control up there was pretty easy. We usually didn't have dogs. I ran a lot of them home. It was easier to run a dog home out in the country than to catch it. I don't run that fast. And so I was doing a lot of, talking to people about why their dog's running loose. Some of these calls, I had to run 50 miles one way to get to the call. And so it pissed me off when I'd get there and the dog would be gone. Or they'd look at me and say, well, it's actually the neighbor's dog. We're just tired of it being here. So I started, knocking on doors and talking to people about their dogs being loose. And I think my at-large dog ticket was $50 is what it cost if they got caught. And to impound the dog, it was $50. And then I had to deal with them being mad because they had to drive an hour to come get their dog. Mm. So I did a lot of what we call now RTO. I didn't know it was RTO, but that's what I was doing. And then because of that, my wife being the dog lover that she is, she would pull dogs out of other states in the South. And so we generally have 35, 40 dogs in our kennel, but very few of them were from our county. Minnesota is pretty tough on bite dogs. Most bite dogs at that time were getting euthanized even with one bite. So we didn't have a lot of quarantine issues. And then we did have a new dangerous dog law, and potentially dangerous dog were new when I was doing it. So that was an interesting learning curve. But it was because of all the attacked by dogs that we were having, even out in the rural areas, not so much in the Minneapolis, St. Paul area. And so anyway, fast forward, I moved to Texas. I was an ACO. They had just gone to no kill by mandate, had to be 90%. And the history of Austin, you know, was a very small group of people that drove the no kill mandate in Austin. And they looked at it all from the shelter aspect, all from adoptions and fosters. And, you know, nobody looked at animal control, and animal control worked for the shelters. So I walked in and I said, you know, how do we support no kill? And nobody knew because they were not part of the discussion. So it's pretty tough when you got a animal control facility that has to be 90% no kill, and we're supposed to go out and pick up dogs. You know, we were still doing neighborhood sweeps. We'd bring in 25, 30 dogs at a time. So we changed those sweeps after we got threatened with our jobs once. We changed the sweeps to an enforcement type sweep where we'd look at call volume in certain areas, and then we would just go in the evening and we would work like a 3-hour swing, just going through and talking to people, because we knew most of the dogs getting let out, or let out in the morning or let out in the evening. So we did an enforcement sweep. Once in a while, we'd still pick up some dogs, but that helped a lot because we put out signage ahead of time and, you know, broadcast it. And so anybody that got a ticket, it was hard for them to complain when they've been driving by the sign saying we're going to be there in 10 days. But those were somewhat effective. You know, we got some calls volume lowered because of that. But, you know, we were running 65 to 70,000 calls a year, and we were doing it with 12 ACOs. When I started, you'd walk out of the building with a 25, 30 calls already. We didn't have computers in the truck, so we were writing everything down.
The paper
cards. Yeah. And then your hieroglyphics on the end of each call as to what you did on it, and trying to remember so you could document it.
Sure.
But fast forward that we had to figure out quickly how we could keep our jobs and still, you know, meet the no kill mandate. Mm-hmm. And so we really pushed our RTO. We did a lot of home quarantines. Texas allows home quarantines if they're not in violation of any local ordinances or state laws. So we pushed a lot of home quarantines, and it went pretty well, actually. We did a lot of neighborhood stuff. You know, we'd go in and we'd do a lot of the national night out. It was not unusual for us to be at like 9 different locations for national night out. I relate it to what we call the ice cream truck mentality. We wanted to go from take it and ticket to pick it up and find its home. Well, you can't do that if you throw the dog in the truck and run off. So we had like literally, we told the officers, sit in your truck with your windows down and your radio off. So if people approach you, we can try to find who owns the dog. And that was effective, more effective in some neighborhoods than others. But I think 2013, the spring, I was there about 6 months, and I got promoted to supervisor. And that's when we were really able to make some changes, because we had no manager over us. We reported directly to the assistant director. So the other co-supervisor and we just did whatever we wanted. We made a lot of changes. Some of them didn't work, and we quietly stopped doing them. Mm-hmm. And some of them that worked really well, you know, those are the ones we pushed and bragged about. But that's really where we started engagement-based animal services. And I went back to my time in Minnesota, where I got frustrated, you know, driving 30, 40, 50 miles and the dog's home. So that's when I started talking to people, and it worked there. I didn't have, you know, I realized I didn't keep data back then. We didn't have a computer in the house until much later. But in Austin, we found if we stopped and talked to people, even if their dog wasn't out, if they called, you know, somebody called in and said, hey, the dog at 102 Johnson Street is out all the time, we just go knock on the door and talk to them, or send them a letter. And we found about a 50% reduction in loose dogs when we did that. So the same thing with returning to owner. If you take the time to push a dog home and find out where it lives instead of catching it, when it's safe, you know, obviously if you're on a busy road or something, you need to get that dog off the road, you deal with it. Or if it's overly aggressive.
Mark, where did that come from, though? Like, even before Minnesota, like, what gave you the intuitiveness to say, like, I'm going to treat this job differently than what it's been in the past? Because in the past, you know, no one would go to those lengths, or no one would have that customer service aspect.
Yeah, I don't know. I grew up in a family of 8 kids, and there was 2 ways you could stand out to mom and dad. You could either be really bad or you could be really good. I won't say I was usually the really good one, but I was creative. I was super competitive. I swam from age 8 to 18. I was a competitive swimmer on a private team. I ran cross country. I was in track. Our whole family was with all those kids, you tended to be, that brings out that competitive nature. And even when I was working like factory jobs and stuff, when I did animal control and we ran the rescue, I was still working full time. My wife and I had 6 kids. We had to make ends meet. And I always wanted to go into a job and make it better than what it was when I came. You think about it, like if you go hiking in the mountains, you want to go in there and nobody knows you were ever there when you come out, which is appropriate. We don't want to leave trash or whatever. But I think in a career or in a job, you should leave your fingerprints on it as the betterment that you brought to it. And so you've heard Dan and I have talked, and I talked with, Katie Hurst. I want to bring animal protection, animal control to a professional level that all of us want it to be. But we have to do that with some appropriate training. But, we should always be striving to do the job better than the guy before us. I hope that when I leave, the people I leave in charge will do it even better than I did if I lay the right groundwork. So I guess it just comes, I don't know, it's just me or what. When I started animal control in Minnesota, there was no rules. Nobody had done it before. So I hope whoever's doing it now, they've changed it a little bit, but I'm assuming they do a good job. I've never heard any complaints, but I just always want to improve. I always want to be better than I was yesterday.
It's so funny watching Ashlee up top on the screen because her kids keep coming in during the podcast.
No, it's my cat today.
It's not the kids.
It's not the kids. It's my cat, and my cat decided to play bite me. That's what the face was.
Do we have to quarantine your cat?
No, he didn't break skin.
Play right. I'm sitting in my truck, by the way, because my house is too noisy, and I have a lot of dogs. And then I had 2 cats on the hood of my truck looking at me, wondering why I'm sitting in the yard in the shade.
They're like, what's going on there?
Why is he in there? Why are we not in there with him?
So Mark, when you moved over to Austin and, y'all were trying to change that culture there as far as, RTOs, because I know for our department, it's very important. Last year, our officers took 900 animals home. Those are 900 animals that didn't have to come to our shelter. And we just started recording all that data in 2018. Was there any kind of pushback of that change?
Yeah. So when I first became a supervisor in Austin, our performance evaluations were based on negatives. How many citations did you write? How many affidavits did you have spelling errors in? How many dogs did you catch? In 2011, just a little bit of history, they fired the director of animal services after they moved into a beautiful new facility because she wouldn't stop killing animals. And, they took in, I think 21 or 22,000 animals that year. So again, you had this very loud, vocal, small group that wanted everything saved, thought you could save them all. Shout out to Dan there. And we all knew that, my philosophy has always been if you don't have to bring them in, you don't have to catch them or kill them. If you can keep them home where they already have a home, everybody wins. Mm-hmm. So the initial pushback, we had officers quit because they didn't want to talk to people.
Yeah,
we had guys that were really good at catching dogs, and they didn't care. It didn't matter to them. So they ended up self-selecting out. I never had to fire anybody. But I will tell you, when we changed the SSPRs is what they were called, we added, that it's a benefit to bring, they got positive encouragement. And I had one guy, loved this guy to death. He was a really good dog catcher. If you had to catch a dog, he was the guy that he'd get there and he knew all the fences. He knew where to push them. We'd had numerous meetings that we were rewarding return to owner. And I knew, because he had trained me, I knew he returned dogs. He just didn't like doing paperwork. And he was like our lowest RTO result person at the time. So I brought him in one day and I said, I'm not going to say his name, but I said, you get rewarded for more RTOs. And I know you return dogs. You don't have to write tickets when you return them. Because originally when I started, you had to write a ticket if you did RTO. So, happy moment. Oh, by the way, here's the part that sucks. We're going to give you a ticket. Mm-hmm. So it's my hero to zero. You went from a hero to a zero because now not only did you bring their dog home and possibly saved his life, getting it off Airport Boulevard or whatever, and now you got to write him a ticket that could cost him $250 or more. This dude looks at me, he says, "What? I could have been returning all these dogs and getting bonuses and I mean, they didn't actually get money, but we gave out little goofy prizes and stuff. And he'd been sleeping through meetings. So once he realized that returning and you didn't have to write a ticket, all you need to do is get the dog information and the person information. He just didn't want to do the computer entry. Once he realized that's all he had to do, man, he shot to the top of our RTO list. You talk about 900 RTOs. One year I told my staff, I said, if we get 1,000 RTOs, we'll have an event off campus somewhere where adult beverages can be served. And so I'm sitting there one day. I meant dogs because dogs are the problem, but I didn't say dogs. So this guy comes in. He says, "Hey, I got an RTO today or yesterday, whatever it was." And I said, "What is it?" He says, "I got 51 goats home." So
it counts. It counts.
Again, he reminded me that I did not say dog. So we RTO'd well over 1,000 animals that year. But even that, 51 goats in the city of Austin. In Austin, livestock fell on animal control. The only time it fell on sheriff was in the county, and that was the arrangement we had. So I was glad he got the 51 goats home, because that would have been hellacious to haul, and then we actually had to pay board where we kept them. So I was glad that he did it. But the staff really bought into that. They really enjoyed bringing animals home. You have those conversations. I document a lot of stuff. When I started, we'd walk out the door with 25, 30 calls, and we had about 4 minutes per call. That was the average time on a call, not including travel time. And when I left, average time on call was 13 minutes. So having enough staff to actually have meaningful conversations with people to fix the problem that you're there for is much more productive. I checked a couple of months ago, last fiscal year for Austin, they only ran 36,000 calls for service. And remember, we hit a peak somewhere at 80. And in Chameleon, our calls, the way it worked out in Chameleon database was every call generated 2 sequences. So if you're running 80,000 calls in a year, and remember, each call takes man hours, which costs money. Each call, if it's a second sequence is added to it, that's 160,000 calls a year, and that's all time. So over the time, we added more staff. I don't know what they're at right now, but I think by the time I left, we had 34 in field services alone, just in ACOs, with 3.5 full-time dispatch. But everything, trying to stop the inflow of animals costs money and takes time. But for us to intake an animal, I mean, even in Victoria, just bringing a dog in costs us $70 between man hours,
Mark,
vaccinations.
Are you a fan of like some of these programs that tell people to leave just stray dogs in the street and not try to impound to reduce calls? What's your thoughts on that?
So I don't want them necessarily left in the street. I want them to find out if they know where the dog lives. Most people know where a dog lives, and so when COVID hit, I had staff sitting at home, didn't have anything to do. So one of my staff from the intake department, she got curious what happened to all these dogs that were reported to us as found, but we never got. So she sent out a basic little, like 10 or 15 question survey, emailed, and we found out how a lot of people got dogs home was just walking around their neighborhood, or they saw it on Facebook or Nextdoor. Nextdoor at that time was our biggest way of getting people got dogs home. So then at that same time, I was going through data. For 3 years, I had every time somebody returned a dog in the field, they had to send me an email saying where they found it, where home was, and we measured that distance. And then we took that 3-year average, and that's where I found out 42% of the dogs my staff were interacting with. And these are like driving down the street, it's a site call, right? Okay. Or maybe they got a call for a loose dog. 42% of them were in front of their house, literally. Another 82% were within 400 to 500 yards of their house. So
was this Austin or Minnesota?
Austin.
So do you think that differs depending on where you are?
100%.
Okay.
Even in the state of Texas, I'm sure.
Well, and so there's 2 things with that. You get out in the county, I'm on 22 acres. From my house to my mailbox is about 700 yards, and my dogs can cover that in a heartbeat. They're constantly over at my neighbor's house when she lets her dog out. So they're still only one house away. It's just that it's a quarter mile,
Sure.
So geography plays a big role. And then the other thing that this is my thoughts. I haven't figured out how to study it. I can only assume that the more often a dog is let out and not supervised, the further it's going to go. So,
Pushes
and
the boundaries.
right. It pushes its boundaries. We had a guy come in a couple weeks ago looking for his dog. One of them got hit by a car and was killed. And he wanted to know if we had his other dog. And he said, I let them out every day. They go to Taco Bell, they give them some tacos, and they come back. And I said, well, that's really not appropriate. They're crossing 2 major roads to get to Taco Bell, and he didn't find it being a problem. I asked him what his address was. And he said, well, they've always come back in the past. So that would have been one, if we picked that dog up, it would have been probably 6 city blocks roughly away from home. And these dogs do it every day. So, the odds of them not making it one day are pretty strong when you let them do it every day. And so again, when Haas started, that's the movement a lot of people refer to in 2020. They did a lot of what we were doing in Austin, and then they tried to magnify it. And when you say don't bring dogs in, you have to qualify it with what your expectation is of the finder. There's also a misnomer in Texas where a lot of animal controllers say, well, once you take care of that dog, you're the owner. And Texas law reads that if you take responsibility for an animal, you have to make good decisions, basically. I'm paraphrasing. So you're either the owner or you're the caretaker. So if you pick a dog up on the side of the street, Texas law doesn't allow you to just take it down the street and let it go. So where we get stumbling with animal control is they're like, hey, you took the dog, you fed it, it's yours. Like, no, if they're calling you and wanting you to pick it up, they are being a responsible person. They're taking care of that dog in the way they know how. So for a long time, we've done ourselves a disservice in not finding out any information from the finder. Like, have you seen the dog before? Do you travel through the area? These are all questions we asked in Austin. Is it something you see on a regular basis? Because if they see the dog there on a regular basis, even if we take it in, we can then go to that neighborhood and post some found dog flyers. Amazing how many dogs you can get home and do that. Nextdoor and Facebook are also useful for that. In Austin, I had a government Nextdoor account, so I could go into your Nextdoor and post in your Nextdoor. I didn't have to be one that was one of my neighbors.
Really
and that
quick,
was hugely,
how do you get that for people? Because that is a problem, right? How do you get the government account?
usually you have to go through your either city or county. Most public information offices have one. And so what we did is we were able to piggyback off of the Austin Public Information Office.
That's smart.
Yeah, and they're very protective of it because Nextdoor nationally doesn't like those kind of posts. So there are limits to it. So what we would do is we'd actually send it to the PIR office. City of Austin's got a huge office, and they would either approve or disapprove. Normally they approve it because we knew the parameters. But you don't want to overwhelm a neighborhood with garbage posts. Every lost dog, you'll see now that we tried to meet with Nextdoor to see if they have an app on Nextdoor. If you're posting, like you see some creepy guy in your yard looking in windows, your neighbor's windows, if you post that, it'll give you the option to report it to local law enforcement. If it's not an emergency call, And so I saw that and I said, man, that'd be great if we could post that for found dogs or lost dogs. Sure. And we contacted our local Nextdoor rep, and I told my staff, if it's an hour-long meeting, we got something. If it's a 15-minute meeting, they're not interested. 18 minutes later, we got off our call. They said they didn't have the bandwidth, whatever. Well, sometime that year, I mentioned it to Susan from Petco Love out of San Antonio. And you'll see now, Petco Love, if you used to be Finding Rover. Okay. If you post your dog lost or found on Petco Love, it scans Nextdoor, Facebook, and Ring. She was all excited. We were at a gala down in McAllen area last year, and she came up and said they got it. So sometimes, my ideas don't go anywhere, but if you talk to the right person who knows somebody, you can get ideas done. So Finding Rover is pretty cool, or now it's called Petco Love Lost. And you can, we have that attached to our Facebook, and we've had dogs get home because of that. And that's another thing, when this all goes back to when you find a dog. What are you asking the public to do? To just say, hey, keep the dog, we don't have room? That's not the appropriate answer. I'm a municipal shelter, so I have to have room. I have to make room, and that's okay. But I also don't hold on to dogs. If we get a dog in that's, it's on his 5-day stray hold and it's trying to kill everybody, I can tell you what happens at the end of that 5-day stray hold. Again, I'm not killing for space or convenience. I'm going to euthanize a dog because it shouldn't be out in the public. And if somebody's got it that can't keep it home and is chasing people on a bicycle, do we really want it back in the public? I'm not going to go out of my way.
You mentioned something earlier about kind of the legacy that maybe you would like to have on our profession in some aspects. And you talked about training. But one question I have is not just from the training aspect, how do we as a profession get the recognition that we all on this show currently have for each other? But and I'll just talk about Wisconsin Bishop's case. Her community did not see animal control as a necessity. Maybe they don't understand that it is linked to other crimes, or that animals are considered family in many households in this country. And so what is your take on that, Mark? Like, how do we get buy-in from the community that we aren't the dog pound and dog catcher outside of the training aspect?
And to go a little bit further on that, Mark, to make a point that we are not money-making departments.
That is very much a good point.
Hold on. Visit us in January for more on that.
Right. So people really need to look at animal services like any other municipal service: fire, police, busing. None of those things make money. There is no revenue generated.
Correct.
I get a lot of heat in Victoria because they don't think we write any citations. We write citations every day. But it's up to the judge as to what that fine is. In Texas, it's anywhere from $0 to $500 for a Class C misdemeanor. Mm-hmm. There is a push currently right now, and I certainly support it, of making animal control officers first responders. But I personally think if we want to be recognized as first responders, we need to have, a recognized training regiment for that. So without talking even about the training, my expectation with any ACO that works for me is that they know what they're talking about when they get there. When police call us, if you want to be more than a dog catcher, know what your responsibility is in that call. And if it's an animal call, take charge of the call. I had a habit in both. So I got really lucky in Minnesota because I was a reserve deputy for the sheriff's department in the county where I worked. And I worked full time in a jail in the next county. So all the law enforcement knew me. I trained police canines for 15 years, took bites off them. So I had really good rapport with law enforcement, and they knew what I knew about dogs. I was the dog guy. My wife was known as the dog lady of the county. So we already had that respect, which made it super easy. When I came to Austin and I found that Austin PD was treating us like dog catchers, it was because we were. That's what we did. I went to an open door one night when I was working evenings, and we got the dog back in the house, and I shut the door. I tied the door shut, and we all knew the dogs. They were not good dogs, and we knew the owner. And they said, "Aren't you going to take the dogs?" I said, "Well, I'll go to get the dogs if you grab the TV." And the cop looked at me. He's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "It's property, man. State of Texas, those dogs went in the house on their own. I can't go in and get them in pursuit because they didn't cause harm to a person. They were just loose. So if we show up and we know what we're talking about, and with confidence, I don't quote law, but I'll refer to it. And if they want me to quote it, I'll pull up my phone and read it."
And I'm right there with you. And that is one piece of it. How do we here's where I'm getting at, is there's national campaigns to support animal shelters. You have Clear the Shelters, right? You have all these things to push people to understand that animal shelters, they're not seen as dog pounds anymore. How do we get that same type of publicity and support through some of these bigger agencies to help now, thank an animal control officer on ACO week, or call an animal control officer when you see this? None of that's out there.
So part of it is we don't tell our own story. Mm-hmm. When I was in Austin, for a while there, we had really good management that wanted us to tell our story. There was several of us that were all over, talking to Best Friends and the Austin American Pets Alive conferences. We were in New Orleans at the HSUS conference as speakers. We were telling our story about how animal control saves shelter space, saves dogs from having to be euthanized. Again, it was a fight with Austin PD. We had a hard time with that group. They just weren't, they constantly still to this day look as dog catchers. Travis County, on the other hand, which is the sheriff's department in Austin, they readily accepted us as the subject matter expert on all things animal. They had 2 cruelty investigators that also worked with us for county cruelty stuff. But, they had us at their show ups at 9 a.m. for East Command and West Command. I mean, that's the respect they showed us. We had a program in the jail for cat and puppy stuff before COVID hit. They would house them, these neonatal kittens, and the women took care of them, and they did a really good job, really successful program until COVID. But I came to Victoria, and they had a horrible reputation. And one of the first people I went and talked to that I met with, because I work for the county, I went and met with the sheriff and the chief deputy. And I explained to them what my expectations for my staff are. And I said, your staff can do whatever they want. Obviously, they're your staff. But I said, when my staff show up, they need to see the subject matter expert show up. And it's okay for them. They're law enforcement. They can do what they want. We work with them hand in hand. I just had KD down for training, and they had 2 investigators and 2, I think they were sergeants, show up that they paid to come to KD's training on cruelty. And they walked out of there so happy that we invited them. One guy in particular, he said, I had no idea how far into this you guys have to go and what happens before we even get there. So I have very good rapport with the sheriff and the chief deputy. I have their personal cell phone numbers. If something's going on, they let me know. If I need to let them know something, I let them know. I am our biggest cheerleader. I go to in Texas, we have commissioners, and commissioners court for our county is every Monday. I am there every Monday, whether I have something on the agenda or not. We have, before court starts, you can get up and speak on public comment if you're not on the agenda for that same thing. And if we have a microchip clinic, last week we did 123 microchips, first big microchip clinic we've done. I got up there and talked about it. I have to be the louder, positive voice than any of the negatives in the county. And again, that goes back to when we talk about return to owner, you see a change. A certain group that I partner with all the time, best friends, they sponsored in September a return to home challenge. So I have been yelling in best friends' ears. I've been working with them for, probably going on 7 or 8 years now. They need to concentrate more on the field stuff. If they truly want to save them all, we got to quit getting them into the shelters. And so they did a return to home challenge, and you put in your year's data before and the year's data you have now. And they were giving out, I think it was $1,000 if you did 2 new things on the list to try to return dogs home. And I guess it could be any animal, again, could be goats. But if you did 2 new things to your program, you could get $1,000. They don't call it a prize, it's a grant. And then 4 groups were picked for a $10,000 grant. I also came into a department that sucked at recording data correctly. They weren't using their pet point nearly to what they could. So we're doing that better now. But anyway, I just found out Friday that we won one of the $10,000 grants. And that's with 30 RTOs in a month. We took in 146 animals and we returned 30. So it's not huge numbers, but for Victoria, it's huge numbers. It's a 4,900% increase. So we won one of the big grants. I was amazed because I was just happy to get $1,000 to buy more microchips.
The struggle's real, man.
Right. But, I started in-truck microchipping in Austin 7 or 8 years ago. I don't even remember. It was a long time. Nobody was doing it. And it's not a medical procedure in Texas. So there's no reason to wait till the animal comes in the shelter. Let's microchip in the field if you're there.
Oh, we got frozen.
Obviously, the dog gets loose. So you might as well just do it in the field.
You froze a little bit, but I think, no, you're spot on. I mean, doing some of those more progressive programs, we need the same support. When I say we, field services, not even support, needs the same attention that animal shelters get in maybe the no kill.
Not
nationally.
And respect. We need the same respect.
So the dodo, I don't know if you read the dodo.
Sometimes
there's a ton of articles in there about animal stuff. Very seldom do you see anything about animal control. You'll see something about some firefighter swam through the water to save, a chihuahua. And, again, I kind of joke when I do things, there's a reason I go back to that old, cops and firefighters need heroes too. That's why they invented animal control. But if we don't get out there and tell our story, I have contacts with all my media. When I was in Austin, if I ever did an interview with anybody, I'd be like, hey, can I keep your number in case we got something juicy? And they're like, oh yeah, yeah. And so that's how we tell our story. I was full and going to have to kill for space last Wednesday. So I sent an email to our local media. They put a blurb on TV that, that Victoria County Animal Service is going to have to euthanize animals for space. I'd already euthanized all the bad dogs. So I don't talk about those dogs. I only talk about it when it's really good dogs that I would take home. So, we stayed late one day. They covered that. They sent a reporter out, and that's, again, I got to be our biggest cheerleader. I can't wait for other people to notice me. So doing things like I've sent numerous articles to Dodo. They have yet to print any, but I'm going to keep bothering them. I don't even care for it because they're super. I shouldn't say I don't care for them. They're just a lot of touchy feely stuff, and they don't necessarily. I'm very fact based, but you also have to learn to write. Like, I manage our Facebook account. Almost all the people that follow us on Facebook are women, so I can't. That informational stuff I think is important to post that nobody reads. I got to quit posting that, and then I write feelings based posts, but I include the information I need people to get. Like not letting your dog out for the day. Anecdotal stories. Like I talked to a guy Friday. He was looking for his two dogs. He's like, they're house dogs. They don't run off. I let them out in the front yard. And then I find out actually he let them out to go pee in the front yard when he took kids to school at 8 a.m. He's talking to me at 1:30 in the afternoon. He just noticed they were gone. So these are things, like, hey, Victoria, this is why we are full of animals, because people do this. It's just a house dog, but some good Samaritan picks it up, brings it to us, or our officers pick it up. We got to be better at telling our story. And that's what gives me concern about wanting to be first responders. Being a first responder is more.
I think
people move over when you're on the side of the road. It's also more than being able to drive lights and sirens.
You cut out again.
We need to be the professional.
Hey, Mark, your phone cut out really quick. You were just saying being a first responder, and then it cut out. So I just want the people to hear that.
It's more than being able to get somewhere quick, with lights and sirens. You have to show up as the subject matter expert. And
I think, this is a conversation we can continue to have. And I think your expertise and your want to create that is invaluable. And so people that, I guess are wanting to move this profession forward, how do they reach out to you if they want to collaborate with some stuff? What's the best way for them to get in touch?
Easiest way is my work email. And
okay.
That I think you have it. You can post it on the thing.
Perfect. Yeah, I can do that.
I do help a lot of the smaller animal control around us. Anytime they need help or have questions, I'm happy to help them, because we got a lot of little towns around here that just have one ACO or maybe two.
Got it. I don't know if you can hear Mooney. He's out there supporting you. He's like, yeah, that's right. That's it.
I've got a couple in my yard barking too. So,
well, let's do this. It's time for Halloween. I don't even know what we're calling this segment. Halloween treat or trick or treat, dog or treat. So what I want to do is we're going to go 3 rounds, and then we're going to pick what treats we think our dog would want. Like, what is their number one on the list? Now, here's a little thing. Like, you can't pick chicken and then chicken nugget. So if chicken is chicken, it's chicken. You can use any store-bought treats. You can use any people food, whatever you think will be a dog's favorite treat. Because they should go trick-or-treating too. You should have, if you're passing out candy, you should have a bowl of dog treats. I'm just saying.
No, because people shouldn't be taking their dogs out, because it's kind of a scary time of year for the dogs with all
don't
the
be
kids.
Don't be one of those people.
I am one of those people.
If they have a well-behaved dog, that they can go out with them.
It's not the dogs that need to be well behaved. It's the children who are hyped up on the candy and go, "Oh, puppy," and go running up to it into its face with a mask on.
Okay. That sounds like a mother talking. So Mark, since you are our guest, you get number 1 overall pick. And I guess we'll just go in this order. So we'll just go Mark, Ashlee, and then me. And then I guess I get 2 picks because it's Snake. So I'll just go.
Which Ashlee?
Well, we'll go with the younger one.
Okay.
Okay, because I'm that much younger than Lee.
So
Uh,
I got
Mark,
more hair than her.
You're kicking it off
More
with the
white hair.
number one overall dog treat of this segment. What do you think a dog's number, or what would you pick? Not even think.
So
Yeah.
my dogs individually wrapped cheese,
Oh, cheese for the number. Let me
American
write. I got
cheese,
to make
whatever.
sure I write this down.
They can hear that. They can hear that from the neighbor's house. They hear it being unwrapped because that's what all their meds come in, and they just think it's a treat.
All right,
my
cheese.
dog no longer eats cheese because of the meds.
That's
Gonna have to go to something
Pavlov.
juicier.
Pavlov.
what do you got? What do you got, Texas Bishop? What's your number one
I'm gonna say
or
like
your second pick?
the old school or like the number one pill pocket, like the actual pill pockets.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Like the OG green bag pill pocket.
Yes. That's number one. Wow, that's a sleep. I didn't think that was coming. Okay. Wisconsin, what's yours?
Um, the one that I used a lot in the field was Bill Jack treats.
Those are good.
They're super stinky, so very enticing.
Well,
But
I
they're
am
good enough. You can put them in your mouth while you try to leash the dog and hold them.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Not saying I've done that.
I'm not gonna. Yeah, we're not going down that road. So I get back-to-back picks because then we go backwards. So for my first round pick, I'm gonna just look at my dog really quick. Y'all might not think that I cook him steak because I only eat plants, but I will go with beef of any sort. So steak. I'm gonna go with steak. And then because I only eat plants, carrots. We know dogs love carrots. So number one and first and second for me are steak and carrots. We're gonna have a 5-course, 5-star meal here for this dog.
Um, so my dog, because he actually has an allergy to chicken, we did find he really enjoyed the Blue Dog Bakery treats
Blue dog.
when we were trying to figure out what would entice him for training.
Okay. Are they crunchy or soft?
You can get both.
Okay. Texas Bishop, you're on the clock.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine. It's totally fine.
Sorry, I just sneezed and it like hurt my face. I'm gonna just go like with all the nasty bad stuff. Pepperoni, man.
Pepperoni, that's classic.
I'm sure it's not good, but I tell you what, it helps nasty dogs come around pretty quick.
Stinky and enticing.
Mark, you get your last two here.
Last one for me is going to be the my wife buys these chicken meatball things from Tractor Supply, and the dogs also can hear that package being opened from a block away. And then I agree with you. Anything beef or fresh chicken, my dogs are right there.
You can't. It's already been off the board. It's off the board. You can't use those.
I can still agree with you though.
Well, but you got to pick something else, Mark.
All right. Well, there's another one. I don't know where she buys them. We get them. I think it's from Chewy on a subscription, but they're kind of like pepperonis. They're a little Slim Jim looking thing, and they're super smelly and soft. I mean, all my dogs they don't care about the dry treats. They only want that soft, squishy stuff with a lot of aroma to it.
Okay, we'll allow that Slim Jim pepperoni.
I don't know what it is.
All right, Ashlee, what's your last one?
Does like a specific dog food, like Old Roy canned food, that stuff, ugh, that will get you dogs or cats.
Actually, so does the Bill Jack treat.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just doing all the nasty stuff.
My last one is a great Kong filler. You fill the top off the Kong with it and throw it in the freezer. Pumpkin.
Oh, so just pumpkin, just for the
Yep, 100% pumpkin.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, no, not the Kong filler, like actual canned
Very.
pumpkin. Mm-hmm.
My third and final pick of this draft is the all-time classic and the number one treat for what we call in this household nighttime crunch. That's correct. Before bed, someone gets a cookie, and that is a milk bone.
I
Folks.
was gonna
Mm.
say too, but
Milk bone to round off this thing. So again, just to recap, because you can vote online, check out our websites, or not what it'll be on Facebook. Mark with cheese, the cheese and the packaged cheese, I shall say, chicken meatballs, and the Slim Jim looking thing from Chewy. Then you got Texas Bishop. Texas Bishop's got the classic pill pockets in the green bag. Definitely know what she's talking about there. Soft, moldable pepperoni, Old Roy canned food. Those are all classics. And then you got Wisconsin Bishop with some Bill Jack treats. Are Bill Jack treats soft too? I feel like they're soft.
Yes.
Yeah.
Blue Dog Bakery treats, and then just your old pumpkin, regular old pumpkin. And then I had steak, carrots, and milk bones. So go vote for who had the best draft in the trick or treat version of dog treats for this little fun thing here. So thanks for playing our silly game there, Mark.
No problem.
Anything else you want to add before we wrap up the show? I got that's one thing that I wanted to mention really quick. I knew I had something in the beginning and I forgot. I have the technician coming over for my internet because it works whenever it wants to work. Thankfully, it's working now. But you know, one of the first things that the call taker asked me?
If you had a dog.
I love that. And
Yes.
then what did they say when I said I do have a dog?
Can you put it away?
And I said I will absolutely do that. And then she said, you know, it's funny because most people, even though we ask, still don't put it away.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Mark, we really appreciated you taking the time today to be on the program. What else did you have, sir?
Not much. We'll be in Taka for those that are coming to the Texas Animal Control Association. It's the 50th anniversary of our local association. I know you'll be down there presenting, and Katie will be there. Also, just a quick mention, I'm also moving this year to a new building. We're currently in the process. It's an old building being reused, but that's a lot of, you want to talk about adding some stress to your life. Look at spending almost $3 million of the county's money on a remodel. But so we're looking forward to that. It'll be a lot nicer facility. It'll be in town. Right now we're out 3 miles out of town by the airport, so it should be better serving the community being in amongst them.
Nice. Congrats on that.
Well, we appreciate it. I feel like there's a lot more we could talk about, and so if there's ever any other topics you want to come on the show and chat about, just reach out, man. We'd be happy to schedule some time to get you back on and keep doing what you're doing for the profession. We appreciate that, and I'm sure the animals and the community does as well.
I appreciate being on it. Thank you for the opportunity.
Heck yeah. Well, as we always do around this time, we like to say thanks for listening.
And help people.
help animals.
Keep it humane.